All right, let's dive into Chapter 1 of this AWS Certified AI Practitioner Study Guide.
Sounds good.
It's like our mission here is to decode this whole AML world on AWS, right?
Yeah, definitely. Make it clear, easy to remember for the exam.
Okay, cool. So first up, we got to untangle all these AI terms. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and even generative AI.
Lots of buzzwords, right?
Right. It's like, are these just fancy words or is there something I really need to know for this exam?
Well, think of it this way. They're all connected, like building blocks.
Okay, I like that. Building blocks. So where do we start?
Start with the biggest block, artificial intelligence. It's like the overarching idea of machines doing stuff that humans usually do. Thinking, problem solving, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. So what's the next block?
Next, you've got machine learning. It's a type of AI where computers learn from data, but you don't have to program every single rule.
Ah, so it's like the machine figures out the rules on its own.
Exactly. Think about like teaching a computer to spot a cat in a picture. Instead of telling it exactly what a cat looks like, you show it a ton of cat pictures and it learns.
That's pretty cool. So what about deep learning? Where does that fit in?
Deep learning is like machine learning on steroids. It uses these things called neural networks, which are inspired by like the structure of our brains.
Brain stuff. Okay, this is where it starts getting a little sci-fi. So
Yeah.
these neural networks, what do they actually do?
They can handle huge amounts of data and find really complex patterns. So they're used for things like image recognition, language translation, even self-driving cars.
Self-driving cars. Hold on. Are those really using AI already?
Oh, yeah. They rely heavily on deep learning to process all the sensor data and make decisions in real time.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
Okay.
So we've got AI, machine learning, deep learning. What was that last one? Generative AI.
Right. That one's all about creating new stuff. Like imagine an AI composing music or writing a poem.
So if I feed it a bunch of Filipino folk songs, it could write a new one.
Exactly. It takes what it learns from existing data and creates something totally new.
Okay, I'm starting to get how these all fit together, but how much of this deep dive stuff is actually on the exam?
Well, you probably won't be writing poetry during the test.
Good to know.
But understanding how these concepts connect and how AWS services use them is key.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just about the definitions, it's about how it all works together.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So we've got the big picture of AI. What about some specific areas within AI? My notes mentioned computer vision, natural language processing, and something called large language models.
Right. Those are some key domains. And they're all over the AWS services you'll be tested on.
Okay, so break it down for me. What does computer vision actually do?
Computer vision lets machines see and understand images just like we do. It's used for things like facial recognition, analyzing medical images, even spotting objects in videos.
So like Amazon Recognition uses computer vision, right?
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Recognition can do all sorts of things, like identify objects, analyze faces, even moderate content.
That's pretty powerful stuff. What about natural language processing? I've heard that one a lot too.
NLP is all about teaching computers to understand and use human language. So think chatbots, language translation tools, things like that.
Ah, so like when I'm chatting with a customer service bot, that's NLP in action.
Yep. And on AWS, you've got Amazon Comprehend, which can analyze text, extract key information, understand sentiment, all that good stuff.
Okay, so that's NLP. What about those large language models? What makes them so large?
Well, they're trained on massive amounts of data, like huge, and that makes them super powerful. They can generate text that sounds really human-like, translate languages with nuance, even understand and respond to complex questions.
So are those being used on AWS yet?
Oh, yeah. There's Amazon Bedrock, a new service that gives you access to these large language models. It's still early days, but it has the potential to really change how we interact with computers.
Okay, this is all super fascinating, but I have to admit, some of it's starting to sound pretty complex. Like, my notes mention neural networks. Is this where things get really sci-fi?
Well, neural networks are inspired by the human brain, but they're basically just a bunch of interconnected nodes that process information.
Nodes. Like, what does that even mean?
Think of it as a network where each node does a tiny calculation and then passes the result to the next node.
Okay, I'm trying to picture it. So what do these neural networks actually do?
They're the brains behind a lot of AI applications. They're used for image classification, predicting stock prices, even diagnosing diseases. They learn from data and make predictions based on what they've learned.
So they're like AI students, constantly learning.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of learning, your notes mention different machine learning paradigms. Supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement, even self-supervised learning.
Yeah, that's where I start to get lost. Are these like different teaching methods for AI?
Exactly. Each paradigm is a different way to train AI models. Supervised learning is like having a teacher. You give the model labeled data so it knows the right answers and can learn from them.
Ah, okay. So it's like, here's a picture of a cat. It's labeled cat. Now go find more cats.
Exactly. Then you've got unsupervised learning, where the model has to figure things out on its own without any labels.
So it's like, here's a bunch of data. Good luck.
Pretty much. It's used for things like finding patterns in data, grouping similar things together, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so supervised is with the teacher. Unsupervised is on their own. What about reinforcement learning? Is that where the AI gets gold stars for good behavior?
It's kind of like that. Reinforcement learning is all about trial and error. The AI gets rewards for good decisions and penalties for bad ones, so it learns by doing.
Ah, so like training a dog. Treat for good behavior, no treat for bad behavior.
Exactly. It's often used for things like training robots or developing game-playing AI.
Okay, so we've got learning with a teacher, learning on their own, and learning like a dog. What about this self-supervised learning?
Self-supervised is a bit more advanced. The model actually generates its own labels from the data. It's like it figures out how to teach itself.
Whoa, that's pretty impressive. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've got the different types of AI, the domains within AI, even how AI learns. But how does all this actually apply in the real world?
That's a great question, and it's something you'll definitely need to know for the exam. AI is being used everywhere these days, from fraud detection and personalized marketing to self-driving cars and even healthcare diagnostics.
So are there specific examples I should be ready to explain on the exam?
Definitely. Be prepared to talk about things like how computer vision is used in security systems or how natural language processing powers chatbots, even how recommendation engines work, like those suggestions you get on Amazon.
Okay, so it's about understanding how these AI concepts are being used to solve real problems. But hold on a minute. My notes also say that there are times when AI might not be the best solution.
That's an important point. AI is powerful, but it's not a magic solution for everything.
So when would you not recommend using AI?
Well, sometimes traditional methods might be more cost-effective, or if you need absolute transparency and explainability, like in certain financial or legal situations, a rule-based approach might be better.
So it's about choosing the right tool for the job, even if that tool isn't AI.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, my notes dedicate a whole section to AWS services for building AI solutions. Is this where the rubber meets the road for the exam?
Absolutely. Knowing these AWS services is crucial. You'll need to understand what each one does and how it can be used to solve real-world problems.
So which services should I really focus on? Give you the ones that'll impress those exam proctors.
Definitely make sure you understand Amazon Recognition for computer vision tasks, Amazon Transcribe for speech recognition, and Amazon Comprehend for natural language processing. And for those interested in generative AI, dive deeper into Amazon Bedrock.
Okay, so those are the big ones.
Those are definitely a good place to start. There are others, of course, but mastering those will give you a strong foundation.
All right, I'm taking notes. So we've covered a ton of ground here. It's like my brain is officially in AI overload. But before we dive into even more AWS services,
Maybe a quick break.
yeah, a break would be great. We'll be back soon to explore even more of this fascinating world of AI and ML on AWS. Welcome back. So we just explored all these cool AI concepts and AWS services, but now let's talk about the fuel that powers all this AI magic data.
Data is definitely key.
Right. And my notes are filled with different types of data, labeled, unlabeled, structured, semi-structured, unstructured. It's a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
I hear you. It can be a lot to keep straight.
So for the exam, how much do I really need to know about all these data types?
Well, understanding these different data types is super important because it affects which AI approaches you use and which AWS services are the best fit.
Okay, so break it down for me. What's the difference between labeled and unlabeled data?
Think of labeled data like a picture book with captions. Each piece of data has a tag or label that tells you what it is, so the model knows exactly what it's looking at.
Ah, okay, so it's like, here's a picture of a mango, it's labeled mango.
Exactly. That helps the model learn what a mango looks like. Unlabeled data is more like a mystery box. The model has to figure out what's inside without any hints.
So it's like, here's a fruit, you figure out what it is.
Yep. And that's where unsupervised learning comes in handy. The model has to find patterns and relationships on its own.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about structured versus unstructured data? What's the deal with that?
Structured data is like information organized neatly in a spreadsheet. It has rows and columns, everything's in its place. Think customer data in a database, names, addresses, purchase history, all nice and tidy.
So it's easy for the machine to understand. What about unstructured data?
Unstructured data is more like a jumbled mess. Think social media posts, emails, audio recordings, even those long, rambling customer reviews. It's full of information, but it's not organized in a way that's easy for a computer to process.
So how do you even use unstructured data for AI?
That's where things like natural language processing and computer vision come in. They help us extract meaning and insights from that messy, unstructured data.
Okay. So we've got ladled, unlabeled, structured, unstructured.
Hmm.
What was the other one?
Semi-structured. It's like a middle ground between structured and unstructured. It might have some tags or markers to give it a little bit of organization, but it's not as rigid as a spreadsheet.
So like a product catalog with descriptions and images.
Exactly. It's not a perfect table, but it has some structure.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get this whole data thing.
Hmm.
But how do these data types actually relate to AWS services?
Well, depending on the type of data you're working with, you'll need to choose the right AWS service to process it.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. If you're dealing with structured data in a database, you might use Amazon Forecast to build a forecasting model. But if you have unstructured text data, like customer reviews, you'd probably use Amazon Comprehend to analyze the sentiment. And for images and videos, there's always Amazon Recognition.
So it's about matching the right tool to the right data type.
Exactly. The exam will definitely test you on that.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Now, my notes also mention something about features and labels. Are those just more data jargon?
Well, they are important terms to understand. Think of features as the specific pieces of information the model uses to make predictions.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure, let's say you're trying to predict whether someone will click on an ad. The features might be things like their age, their location, their browsing history, what time of day it is, all those kinds of things.
So those are like clues the model uses to make a guess. What about the label?
The label is the answer you're trying to predict. So in our ad example, the label would be whether they clicked on the ad or not.
Got it. So features are the input, the clues, and the label is the output, the answer.
I got it.
All right. I'm feeling a bit more confident about all this data stuff. Now, what about actually building these AI solutions? My notes mention this thing called the machine learning development lifecycle. Is that like a step-by-step guide for creating AI magic?
It's more like a roadmap for building AI solutions on AWS. It makes sure you're asking the right questions, using the right data, and building a model that actually works.
Okay, so walk me through this roadmap. What's the first step?
First, you have to define the problem you're trying to solve. This is called problem scooping. What are you trying to achieve with AI? Are you trying to improve customer satisfaction, optimize your supply chain, or maybe develop a brand new product?
So it's like figure out what you want the AI to do before you even start building it.
Exactly. Then comes data preparation. Remember all those different data types we talked about? This is where you gather the data, clean it up, make sure it's in a format the model can understand, and split it into training and testing sets.
So it's like prepping the ingredients for your AI recipe.
That's a great analogy. You wouldn't want to bake a cake with bad ingredients, right? The quality of your data really impacts the performance of your model.
Makes sense. So once you have the data ready, what's next?
Then it's time for model training. This is where you choose the right algorithm, feed it the data, and let it learn. It's like sending your AI student to school.
So the algorithm is the teacher, the data is the textbook, and the model is the student, soaking it all up.
Exactly. During training, the model adjusts itself to get better and better at making predictions.
But how do you know if the model is actually learning? What if it's just a bad student?
That's where model evaluation comes in. You test the model on a separate set of data it hasn't seen before to see how well it performs.
So it's like giving the AI student a pop quiz to see if they were paying attention.
Exactly. You're looking for things like accuracy, precision, basically, how good is the model at making the right predictions?
And what if the model fails the quiz? Do we send it back to AI school?
Sometimes, yeah. If the model isn't performing well, you might need to tweak it, try a different algorithm, or even get more data.
So building AI isn't just a one-and-done thing.
Nope, it's an iterative process. You experiment, you refine, you keep improving the model until it gets the results you need.
Okay, so we've trained the model, it's passed the quiz. What happens next?
Time for deployment. This is where you make your AI solution available to users or integrate it into your existing systems. It's like launching your AI spacecraft into the real world.
So it's finally ready to go out there and solve problems.
Exactly. But the journey doesn't end there. You need to keep an eye on how the model is performing, retrain it as needed, and make sure it's still doing its job effectively.
So it's like any other software. It needs regular maintenance and updates.
Exactly.
This whole machine learning lifecycle seems pretty comprehensive. It's like a roadmap to AI success.
And it's a roadmap that you'll definitely need to be familiar with for the AWS AI Practitioner exam.
Okay, good to know. So understanding this whole process, from problem scoping to deployment, is key for the exam.
Absolutely. It shows that you understand the bigger picture of building AI solutions on AWS.
All right, I'm making a note of that. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from data types to the machine learning lifecycle. But before we move on to the specific AWS services that bring all this to life,
You ready to see how it all comes together in practice?
absolutely, let's dive into those AWS services. All right, so we've laid the groundwork. We know the concepts. We understand the lifecycle. Now let's talk about the tools. What AWS services can we use to actually build these AI solutions?
That's where things get really exciting. And your notes specifically highlight generative AI, like those AI models that can create new content.
Yeah, that's the stuff that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, like AI writing poems or composing music.
Exactly. And AWS has a service called Amazon Bedrock, which gives you access to these powerful generative AI models.
Okay, tell me more about Amazon Bedrock. What can you actually do with it?
It's like having a toolbox full of AI experts. You can generate different creative text formats, translate languages with amazing accuracy, even create realistic images from just text descriptions.
Wow, so it's not just about understanding AI for the exam, it's about knowing how to use these services to actually build things.
Right. Think about it. You could use Bedrock to generate marketing copy, translate user-generated content in real time, even create personalized learning experiences.
The possibilities are endless. My notes also mention Amazon Q. What's that all about?
Amazon Q is a generative AI-powered assistant. Think of it like your AI sidekick, always ready to answer your questions and help you get things done faster.
So it's like having a super smart research assistant.
Pretty much. There's Amazon Q for businesses, which helps you unlock insights from your data, and Amazon Q for developers, which can guide you on using AWS services and best practices.
Okay, so Q is like your AI tutor for all things AWS.
Exactly. But let's not forget about the other key AI domains we talked about, like language AI. You've got services like Amazon Transcribe and Amazon Poly.
Oh yeah, those were the speech-to-text and text-to-speech services, right?
Right. Transcribe can convert spoken language into text, and Poly can do the opposite, turn text into lifelike speech.
So I could use Transcribe to create subtitles for a video and Poly to make an audiobook.
Exactly. And don't forget about Amazon Lex, which lets you build conversational interfaces like chatbots and voice assistants.
Ah, so that's how you make those interactive AI experiences.
Why?
Okay, what about this augmented AI thing I see in my notes?
Augmented AI, or A2I, is all about combining the power of AI with human intelligence.
So it's like AI and humans working together.
Exactly. There are times when you need human judgment and oversight, even when you're using AI. Like, for critical decision-making processes, A2I makes it easy to integrate human review into your AI workflows.
That makes sense. Sometimes you need that human touch. Now, I remember you mentioned Amazon Comprehend earlier. Can you remind me what that one does?
Amazon Comprehend is all about analyzing text. It can extract key phrases, understand sentiment, even identify the topics being discussed in a document.
So if I had a bunch of customer reviews, I could use Comprehend to see what people are saying about my product.
Exactly. It's a super useful tool for anyone working with text data. And of course, we can't forget about computer vision. That's where Amazon Recognition comes in.
Right. Recognition was the one that could analyze images and videos.
Yep. It can do all sorts of things. Object detection, facial recognition, content moderation, even activity recognition in videos.
So I could use Recognition to build a security system that can spot suspicious behavior.
Exactly. Or you could use it to create an app that can identify different landmarks in a photo.
Wow, this is incredible. There are so many possibilities with these AWS services. It's like my head is spinning with ideas.
That's the beauty of AI and ML. There's so much potential to innovate and solve real-world problems.
This deep dive has been amazing. It's like, I feel like I've unlocked a whole new level of understanding about AML and how it all works on AWS.
I'm glad to hear it. Remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep learning, and you'll be well on your way to mastering the world of AI and ML.
Thanks for being such a fantastic guide. And to all of you listening out there, we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and inspiration to tackle that AWS Certified AI Practitioner exam with confidence. Remember, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI. We'll catch you in our next deep dive.